Hello everyone and welcome to the presentation of my instructional model, the IDIT, I.D.I.T instructional model. Now this model is geared towards technology training, however, it could be used for other forms of instruction as well. Now my intended purpose of creating this model is to use it specifically for training English department teaching assistants on how to set up their advanced composition courses within Blackboard. Now I'm a technology specialist in the English department at the University of Arkansas. One of my duties include, out of many, is help instructors with Blackboard. Now, historically, I've taught workshops on Blackboard, but they've been proven to be ineffective for many. So for this project, I decided to create an online asynchronous Blackboard training course that teaching assistants can view on their own at any time, any place. Now, the training course will take them step by step through the process of building their advanced composition courses in Blackboard. Now, as I mentioned, my target audience is English department teaching assistants, but this training is intended to really help the new teaching assistants who have never taught a course before. Now, a lot of them come to campus just a couple weeks before school starts for the Teaching Assistant Orientation Week, or what we refer to as boot camp in the department. And during that week, they receive a lot of information, and they have to absorb all this information in a short period of time. So having the workshop during that boot camp week puts a lot of pressure on them. It kind of overwhelms them. So, so it is my goal, instead of just teaching them all this during that week, is to have the online training course that can link to the English department's website, and they can view months before the teaching assistant orientation week. Now, so this way, when they arrive on campus, they'll already have the base of the course set up, and all the content they already created, uploaded, and ready to go, such as the syllabus, class schedule, etc. Now, a lot of them will get the materials during orientation week, so they can easily upload the files into the proper folders within Blackboard, since they already have the structure created, their course structure. Now, I also want to prevent the TAs from using Blackboard as a dumping ground for content. I've seen this in the past, many of them do it. And I actually want to see them use Blackboard as part of their class. In other words, utilizing the basic features such as safe assign, discussion boards, blogs, etc. Now, here's a flowchart of my model. This is the original flowchart. It's called the Idit Model, and I made some changes to this based on feedback I received from Dr. Murphy. She mentioned that the implement and outcome phases were very similar, and they were. So what I did in the revised version, I got rid of phase 4, the outcome phase. So here's the image of the revised model, the IDIT model. As you can see, there's 4 phases, and I got rid of the outcome phase. So here's the revised flowchart. As you can see, I got 4 phases: the investigate phase, draft phase, implement phase, and last but not least, the test phase. Now, my model is based on the generic I.D.I.T model, as many are. For example, the investigation phase is similar to the I.D.I.T model's analysis phase. Now, phase 2 of my model, the draft phase, is similar to the I.D.I.T model's design phase. Now, phase 3 of my model, the implement phase, combines the development and implementation phase of the I.D.I.T model. Now, last but not least is my model's test phase, the evaluation phase, which is similar to the evaluation phase of the I.D.I.T model. Now, the main difference is that in my model, there's constant evaluation being going on. Testing is constantly being conducted, especially in phase 2 and phase 3 of my model. Now, I did this purposely to save time. See, if evaluation is conducted frequently, then changes can be applied early on rather than late into the project when for example, when you already went live. The result, well, you save a lot of time, a lot of resources, and this will prevent from having to reinvent the wheel and making drastic changes after you go live with your final project. Now, the steps of my model are based on the theories of behaviorism and cognitism. Now, under the umbrella of the behavioral theory, the learner outcomes, the learner objectives, include expressing the task that you want the learners to perform, resulting in a series of actions that can improve understanding, observable behavior, and some kind of criterion for measuring success. Now, I do this in my online training course. After each video is viewed, the learner will be presented with tasks to complete based on what I just showed them. Now, this represents the observable behavior. They'll observe what I do in the training videos and then do it for themselves in their sandbox course within Blackboard. So if they complete one task successfully, then I'll know they understood the content. For example, one instructional video that I have is how to edit the homepage banner in Blackboard. Now, after viewing the video, one of their tasks will be to actually edit their homepage banner within their sandbox course. If they are able to upload an image and add it to their homepage, then that specific piece of training, that instructional video, will prove to be a success. Now, there's the same format for each of the instructional videos that I have. Also, the training I do in the online training is structured. It takes them through each step. As they complete each step, they'll be more and more able to use Blackboard. And they'll get closer to building their advanced composition course within Blackboard. Now, these behaviors are observable and measurable. Also, models based on the ideas of Albert Bandura's social cognitive learning theory and the concepts of observation learning, observing others and their actions. Now, Bandura's theory includes 4 steps before learning can actually occur. These steps are, number 1, attention. I do this in my project by chunking all the instructional content so my learners stay focused. Number 2, retention. Now, this is achieved in my instructional project also by chunking the content in small instructional packages and having the learners complete certain tasks after viewing the content. Number 3, reproduction. Now, this is achieved in the activity that the learner has to complete. For example, after watching the videos, they'll have to do the exact same thing they just watched in their sandbox course. Number 4, motivation. At the end of each video, I'll try to motivate my learners by saying stuff like, "Great job, you're getting there. You're on track to building your course, way to go." Just constant motivational comments like that throughout the instruction to let them know they're doing a good job so far. So now let's talk about the integration process. So how I integrate the project into my model. Excuse me. So here's a breakdown of phase 1, the investigate phase. Now in step 1, goals, in my instruction project, I jotted down the main goals of the project. Now these are the broad, long-term results of my instruction. These include number 1, create instruction that is simple and easy to follow, allowing each teaching assistant to emulate what they've learned and create their own courses within Blackboard. Number 2, I need to meet the needs of all the different learning styles. Number 3, ensure that their Blackboard course is not just a dumping ground for content. In other words, I want to ensure that their course online has structure. It's organized in such a way that supplements their classroom teaching. Step 2, investigate yourself. So, first I analyzed myself, the instructional designer, and my following limitations. I did my own experience with setting up the online trainings, number 1. Number 2, my own personal time constraints, so how much time I have to complete the project. Number 3, the tools I have at my disposal. Number 4, my own motivation, like what's at stake with this project. And number 5, my own personal and work barriers. So after doing this, I moved to investigating my learners, step 3. Now this is hard to do when there are about 30 teaching assistants who teach this course every semester. So what makes this easier for me is I've been in the department a couple of years and have been able to pinpoint problems that many have with learning Blackboard and the problems many of them face with the current training. As I expressed earlier, I've taught Blackboard workshops to many new TAs and I've given them surveys afterwards. So based on the surveys that I had them complete, I was able to determine problems they experienced. Also, I've been working on a strategic plan for the English department for another one of my classes. And one of the components of this strategic plan is Blackboard training and the problems that faculty face with Blackboard. Now, as part of this project, I sent out surveys to many instructors and TAs trying to pinpoint the reasons why so many are still not utilizing the technology. And based on the responses I received, the problems are related to, number 1, the vast amount of current materials and functions in Blackboard. It just overwhelms many of them. Number 2, they feel that the current training does not relate to their course they're teaching. They expressed that it would be easier if the training was more focused on designing an English course rather than some dummy course like math, history, whatever. Now this helped out a lot during this step because it helped to validate my own opinions about the problems they were having, and the responses were aligned with the results of the surveys that had the new TAs complete after the Blackboard workshop, the workshop I taught for the past 2 years during the week of boot camp. Now, let's move to step 4, environment. This step focuses on delivery environments, the best balance for delivering instruction that will allow for a balance between the instructor and the learners. As part of this step, as expressed in the beginning, I analyzed the equipment, program, software, budget, technology, but in addition to analyzing these elements, I also looked at the previous steps and took into consideration the best delivery method that would meet the different learning styles and provide instruction that is effective and cost efficient. Based on what I analyzed, I concluded that an online delivery environment would be best suited for my target audience. This environment will allow for learners to work at their own pace and view the materials as many times as needed. Now let's move to step 5, resources. Now in this step, I looked at all the resources I had available for this instructional project. I have access to the Canva server, which will cost me nothing to house the training videos. Um, as far as software goes, I have everything needed to create effective training videos. I have a copy of Camtasia 8, Adobe Collaborate, and Dreamweaver to actually build a website. And I have all the necessary computer equipment that will allow me to install the software and design the training videos. Now, we'll go to learning objectives. Now that everything's been analyzed, all the goals, learners, delivery environment, resources, and of course myself, the instructional designer, it's time to focus and describe the objectives for each instructional activity. Now, I've already analyzed the goals in the beginning of phase 1 in step 1, but the goals, unlike objectives, are the broad and long-term outcomes of the instruction. However, the learning objectives are more specific and break down the intended outcome for each activity. For example, the editing page banner, instructional video. The specific objectives will be for learners to A, be able to change the homepage banner and resize it, and 2, to add the course title to the homepage. Now this is a very important step because when objectives are clarified early on, it will make the draft phase so much easier. That's phase 2 of my model. It will allow for the instructional designer to develop a prototype based on the learning objectives. Now in my training video, before each training video, I have a list of learning objectives that my learners will be expected to obtain from watching that particular video. Now, let's move to phase 2, the draft phase. Now in this phase, I focus on instructional strategies, in other words, the tasks and activities for each instructional video. So I start breaking down each task. I do this for both myself, the instructional designer, and for my learners. Now after each instructional video, I will list the specific activities I want them to complete. So let's move on to step 7. Step 7, timeline chart. Now in this step, I create a chart aligning each of the task activities that I distinguished in step 6 with the learning objectives for that particular video or piece of instruction. So I have a little chart here. Now this is a chart I did for myself, the instructional designer. And kind of see, I break everything down so each of these boxes are the different instructional videos. And before that I have a list of the learning objectives. And after that I have learner tasks and activities I want the learners to complete. Now this I did for myself. Now the one I'll do for the learners is very similar. The only difference is that I'll have the actual objectives listed right here, and I'll have the actual tasks and activities listed. So this will kind of help me organize everything, organize my thoughts. So when I start designing, going to the next step, the prototype, I'll have an idea of how I want it to flow. So I can just plug all the information into the website. It makes it a lot easier. Now, let's go back here. Okay, so we got the last step A is develop. Now finally, after all that, I start to design and develop a prototype of the training course. Now this prototype is a replica of the final project. After completing the prototype, I'll have teaching assistants who do not use Blackboard complete the course and complete the specified tasks and activities. After completing the course and tasks, I'll have them all complete a formative evaluation in the form of survey questions. After the evaluation is completed and I've made any changes that need to be made, I can move on to the implement phase. In this phase, step 9, I'm ready to go live with the instruction. Now I will link this to the English website, allowing for every TA to access it at any time, any place, as long as they have computer and internet access, of course. Now once implemented, I'll still continue evaluating. I'll do a summative evaluation to make sure that the new TAs feel the same way. Now this evaluation testing will be in the form of a survey again that must be completed in the week of TA bootcamp. Now since I do correspond with the new TAs months before the start of the semester, I'll give them all the information on the Blackboard course, also the way to set it up, and even if I'm no longer working in the department, the course can still remain active for new TAs to view. So pretty much this is a self-paced training course, 2-hour self-paced training course that they can just do on their own. Now, last but not least, phase 4, test evaluation. Now as you can see, this phase has no steps, but it's rather flexible. As depicted in the flowchart, it floats on the bottom and can be used and applied in any of the other phases. But in the case of my instructional project, I use testing mainly after phase 2 and 3. Now testing, as mentioned, represents evaluation. It means of retrieving constant feedback from the target audience throughout the design process. This is especially crucial for technology training, since many of the learners have varying fears, experiences, preconceived beliefs, knowledge, etc. of a technology being trained, it is important that there is some kind of mechanism where the instructional designer, myself in this case, can track how the target audience feels. Now, this will allow for the instructional designer, to make changes to any of the instructional strategies, activities, and learner tasks. Now, it is difficult to really know for sure how each individual learns, but with constant evaluation, the instructional designer will have a better grasp of what will contribute to reaching the main goals of instruction. And so that's a kind of a look at my model and the integration process. Thank you for your time.